Welcome to Toxic from Reddit, where real toxic relationship stories come to life. Here you'll hear true stories from people who experience toxic relationships from different perspectives. Partners dealing with cheating, manipulation, gaslighting, red flags, and all the emotional chaos that comes with loving someone who hurts you. Stories of betrayal, of finding strength to leave, of discovering the truth, of heartbreak, of healing, and the raw reality of toxic love. This is a real story, shared anonymously on Reddit. Some details have been changed to protect the identity of the people involved. Hi everyone, my name is Rachel, I'm 32 years old and I live in Portland, Oregon, and I need to tell you about the most manipulative and disturbing situation that has completely destroyed my marriage and my relationship with my husband's family, which is that my mother-in-law has been faking a terminal illness for the past 3 years. She told us that she had stage 4 cancer and that she only had months to live, and we completely rearranged our lives to take care of her. We moved across the country to be near her. We spent our savings on her medical expenses. We put our plans to have children on hold. My husband quit his job to be her caretaker. And we just found out 2 weeks ago that she's been lying the entire time, that she never had cancer, that she made the whole thing up to manipulate us and to keep my husband close to her. And now our marriage is falling apart because my husband is in complete denial and he's defending his mother. And I don't know if I can stay in this marriage if he can't see how toxic and abusive his mother is. I'm going to tell you this entire story from the beginning because it's so complex and there are so many layers of manipulation and lies that you need to understand. My husband's name is Michael. He's 34 years old, and we met 7 years ago when we were both living in Seattle. Michael and I met at work. We both worked for the same tech company, and we started dating after working together for about 6 months. Michael is an only child, and he's always been very close to his mother, whose name is Patricia, and she's 62 years old. From the very beginning of our relationship, I could tell that Patricia was very involved in Michael's life. Like, she would call him multiple times a day. She would want to know every detail of what he was doing, and she had very strong opinions about his life choices. When Michael first introduced me to Patricia, I was nervous because I knew how important she was to him, and I wanted her to like me. Patricia was polite to me, but I could tell that she wasn't thrilled about Michael having a serious girlfriend. Like, she would make little comments about how Michael was so busy with work and with me that he didn't have time for his mother anymore. And she would reminisce about when Michael lived at home and they spent so much time together. Michael's father passed away when Michael was in college, so it had been just Michael and Patricia for many years. And I think Patricia had gotten used to having Michael's full attention and having him be the center of her world. I tried to be understanding of their close relationship, and I tried to include Patricia in our lives. Like, I would invite her to dinner, I would call her to chat, and I would make an effort to build a relationship with her. But Patricia always seemed to find fault with me. Like, she would make comments about my cooking, about my career, about my family, and she would compare me unfavorably to Michael's ex-girlfriend, who apparently Patricia had loved. Michael would defend me when Patricia made these comments, but he would also make excuses for her, saying that she was just protective of him, that she meant well, and that I shouldn't take it personally. Michael and I got engaged after dating for 2 years, and when we told Patricia, she cried. And at first I thought she was crying because she was happy, but then she said that she was sad because she was losing her son, and that once we got married, Michael wouldn't have time for her anymore. Michael assured Patricia that he would always make time for her, that getting married didn't mean he was abandoning her, and Patricia seemed to calm down. Planning the wedding was stressful because Patricia had opinions about everything. Like, she wanted to be involved in every decision. She would criticize the choices we made, and she would try to take over the planning. There were multiple times when I wanted to uninvite Patricia from the wedding planning process, but Michael said that would hurt her feelings and that we should just let her be involved because it made her happy. We got married 5 years ago, and the wedding was beautiful, although Patricia did cause some drama by wearing a white dress to the wedding, which everyone knows is inappropriate for the mother of the groom, and by giving a speech at the reception where she talked about how hard it was to let Michael go and how she hoped I would take good care of her baby. I was annoyed, but I tried to let it go because I didn't want to start my marriage by fighting with my mother-in-law. After we got married, Michael and I moved into our own apartment in Seattle, and we were building our life together, and things were good, except for Patricia's constant interference. Patricia would call Michael multiple times a day. She would show up at our apartment unannounced. She would invite herself to our date nights, and she would guilt-trip Michael if he didn't spend enough time with her. I tried to talk to Michael about setting boundaries with Patricia, about asking her to call before coming over, about limiting the phone calls. But Michael would get defensive and say that Patricia was lonely, that she didn't have anyone else, and that he was her only family. I understood that, but I also felt like Patricia was being manipulative, like she was using guilt to control Michael and to keep him tied to her. About 3 years ago, Patricia called Michael and told him that she had been to the doctor and that they had found a mass in her lungs and that she needed to do more tests to find out if it was cancer. Michael was devastated and I was sympathetic, and we both went with Patricia to her doctor's appointments to support her. Patricia told us that the tests came back and that she had stage 4 lung cancer, that it had already spread to other parts of her body, and that the doctor said she only had 6 months to a year to live. We were all in shock and Michael was absolutely heartbroken, and I felt terrible for Patricia, despite our difficult relationship, because no one deserves to have cancer. Patricia said that she wanted to fight the cancer, that she was going to do chemotherapy and radiation, and that she wanted to spend as much time as possible with Michael. Michael immediately said that we would do whatever Patricia needed, that we would be there for her, and that we would help her through this. Over the next few weeks, Patricia started telling us about her treatment plan, about the chemotherapy schedule, about the side effects she was experiencing, and about how hard it was to go through this alone. Michael felt terrible that Patricia was going through this by herself, and he started talking about moving to Portland to be closer to Patricia so he could help take care of her. I was hesitant about moving because we had built a life in Seattle. We both had good jobs, we had friends, and I didn't want to uproot our entire life. But Michael said that his mother was dying, that she needed him, and that he couldn't live with himself if he wasn't there for her in her final months. I understood where Michael was coming from, and I didn't want to be the wife who prevented her husband from being with his dying mother, so I agreed to move. We moved to Portland 3 years ago, and it was a huge sacrifice for both of us. Like, Michael had to quit his job, I had to find a new job, we had to leave our friends and our community, and we had to start over in a new city. But we told ourselves that it was temporary, that Patricia only had months to live, and that we needed to be there for her. When we moved to Portland, we found an apartment that was close to Patricia's house, and Michael started spending every day with Patricia, taking her to doctor's appointments, helping her with household tasks, and keeping her company. I was working full-time at my new job, and when I would come home, Michael would be exhausted from taking care of Patricia, and we barely had time for each other. Patricia's cancer treatment seemed to go on, like she would tell us that the chemotherapy was working, but then she would say that the cancer had spread to another area, and that she needed more treatment. The 6 months to a year prognosis kept getting extended, and Patricia kept saying that the doctors were surprised by how well she was responding to treatment, but that she was still very sick. Michael was completely focused on taking care of Patricia, and our marriage started to suffer. Like, we weren't spending quality time together. We weren't being intimate, and we were constantly stressed and exhausted. I tried to be supportive, but it was hard, because I felt like I had lost my husband, like he was more focused on his mother than on our marriage. I also started to notice some things that didn't add up. Like, Patricia would tell us that she had chemotherapy appointments, but she never seemed to lose her hair, and she never seemed to have the severe side effects that most chemotherapy patients have. When I mentioned this to Michael, he said that everyone responds to chemotherapy differently, and that some people don't lose their hair, and I felt guilty for questioning Patricia's illness. Patricia also seemed to have a lot of energy for someone who was supposedly dying of cancer. Like, she would go shopping, she would go out to lunch with friends, and she would plan social events. When I mentioned this to Michael, he said that Patricia was trying to live her life to the fullest while she still could, and that I should be happy that she was feeling well enough to do things. But I couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. Like, Patricia's illness seemed very convenient. Like, whenever Michael would talk about going back to Seattle for a visit, or whenever we would make plans that didn't include Patricia, she would suddenly have a health crisis and need Michael's help. About a year after we moved to Portland, Michael and I started talking about having children, and I said that I thought we should start trying, because I was 29 years old and I didn't want to wait too much longer. Michael said that he didn't think it was the right time, that his mother was dying and he needed to focus on her, and that we should wait until after Patricia passed away to start a family. I was disappointed, but I understood Michael's reasoning, and I agreed to wait, thinking that Patricia only had a few more months to live based on what the doctors had originally said. But months turned into a year, and then a year turned into 2 years, and Patricia was still alive, still in treatment, and still requiring Michael's constant attention. I started to feel resentful, like I had put my life on hold for Patricia, and I was watching my childbearing years slip away while we waited for her to die. I felt terrible for feeling this way, because I didn't want Patricia to die, but I also felt like our lives were in limbo, like we couldn't move forward because we were stuck in this holding pattern of taking care of Patricia. About 6 months ago, I started to get more suspicious of Patricia's illness. Like, I noticed that she never seemed to have any medical equipment at her house. No oxygen tanks, no pill organizers, Nothing that you would expect someone with stage 4 cancer to have. I also noticed that Patricia never talked about her doctors by name, and she was always vague about the details of her treatment. I started doing some research about stage 4 lung cancer, about the survival rates, about the typical progression of the disease, and I realized that Patricia's story didn't match up with what I was reading. Most people with stage 4 lung cancer don't survive for 3 years, especially not while maintaining the level of activity and energy that Patricia had. I tried to talk to Michael about my concerns, and I said, "Michael, I know this is going to sound terrible, but I'm starting to wonder if your mother is really as sick as she says she is, because some things just don't add up." Michael was furious with me. He said that I was being cruel and insensitive, that his mother was dying and I was accusing her of lying, and that he couldn't believe I would say something so horrible. I backed off because I didn't want to fight with Michael, and I didn't want to be wrong about something so serious, but I couldn't stop thinking about it. I decided that I needed to find out the truth, so I started paying more attention to Patricia's medical appointments, and I asked if I could come along to one of her oncology appointments to show my support. Patricia seemed uncomfortable with the idea, and she said that she preferred to have just Michael at her appointments, that it was too overwhelming to have too many people there. This made me even more suspicious because why would Patricia not want me there if she really had cancer and really needed support? About 2 months ago, I did something that I'm not proud of, but I felt like I had no choice, which is that I went through Patricia's purse when she wasn't looking, and I found her wallet, and I looked at her insurance cards and her medical information. I took pictures of her insurance card and her doctor's information, and then I put everything back. I called Patricia's insurance company, and I pretended to be Patricia, and I asked for information about my recent claims and medical appointments. The insurance representative told me that there were no recent claims for oncology services, no chemotherapy treatments, no radiation treatments, nothing that would indicate that Patricia was being treated for cancer. I was shocked, but I also felt vindicated, because I knew that something was wrong, and now I had proof. I called the oncologist's office that Patricia had mentioned, and I asked if Patricia was a patient there, and the receptionist said that they had no record of anyone by that name. I realized that Patricia had been lying about everything, that she had made up the cancer diagnosis, that she had been faking the treatments, and that she had been manipulating us for 3 years. I was furious, and I was also scared, because I knew that when I told Michael, he wasn't going to believe me, and it was going to cause a huge problem in our marriage. I gathered all of my evidence, the insurance information, the phone records, the research I had done, and I sat Michael down and I told him everything. I said, "Michael, I need you to listen to me with an open mind, because what I'm about to tell you is going to be very hard to hear, but I have proof, and I need you to look at the evidence before you react." I showed Michael the insurance records showing no cancer treatments. I showed him the information from the oncologist's office saying that Patricia wasn't a patient, and I explained all of the inconsistencies in Patricia's story. Michael looked at the evidence, and I could see the confusion and the denial on his face, and he said, "There has to be an explanation. Maybe she's paying for treatment out of pocket. Maybe she's seeing a different doctor. There has to be a reason." I said, "Michael, I know this is hard, but you need to face the truth. Your mother has been lying to us. She doesn't have cancer. She made the whole thing up to manipulate us and to keep you close to her." Michael got angry, and he said that I was wrong, that I was trying to turn him against his mother, and that he was going to talk to Patricia and get to the bottom of this. Michael went to Patricia's house and he confronted her with the evidence, and at first Patricia denied everything. She said that I was lying, that I was trying to destroy their relationship, and that she couldn't believe Michael would believe me over her. But Michael pushed her. He showed her the insurance records. He told her that he had called the oncologist's office, and he demanded the truth. Finally, Patricia broke down and admitted that she had been lying, that she never had cancer, that she made the whole thing up because she was afraid of losing Michael, because she couldn't stand the thought of him building a life with me and forgetting about her. Patricia said that she knew it was wrong, but that she didn't know how else to keep Michael in her life, and that she had gotten in too deep and didn't know how to tell the truth. Michael was devastated, like his entire world had been shattered, and he came home and told me everything, and he was crying and saying that he couldn't believe his mother would do this, that he couldn't believe she would lie about something so serious. I was angry, but I was also relieved that the truth was finally out, and I said, "Michael, we need to figure out what we're going to do, because we've wasted 3 years of our lives. We've spent our savings, we've put our plans on hold, all because of your mother's lies." Michael said that he needed time to process everything and that he needed to talk to Patricia again and figure out why she did this. I said, "Michael, I know why she did this. She did this because she's manipulative and controlling, and she can't stand the thought of you having a life that doesn't revolve around her, and you need to cut her out of our lives." But Michael wasn't ready to do that. He said that Patricia was still his mother, that she clearly had mental health issues, and that she needed help, not abandonment. I was furious, I said, Michael. Your mother has been lying to us for 3 years. She has destroyed our lives. She has stolen our money. She has prevented us from having children. And you're talking about helping her. Michael and I have been fighting constantly for the past 2 weeks, like we can't agree on how to handle this situation, and it's tearing our marriage apart. I want Michael to cut Patricia out of our lives completely, to never speak to her again, and to focus on rebuilding our life together. But Michael says that he can't just abandon his mother, that she's clearly mentally ill, and that he needs to help her get treatment. I've told Michael that if he continues to have a relationship with Patricia, I don't know if I can stay in this marriage because I can't live my life being manipulated by his mother, and I can't trust that this won't happen again. Michael says that I'm being unreasonable, that I'm asking him to choose between his mother and his wife, and that it's not fair. But I don't think I'm being unreasonable. I think I'm protecting myself and our marriage from a toxic and abusive person, and I think Michael needs to see that his mother's behavior is not okay, and that there need to be consequences for what she did. I've been talking to a therapist about this situation, and my therapist has said that what Patricia did is a form of abuse called factitious disorder imposed on another, which is when someone fakes or exaggerates an illness to gain attention and sympathy. My therapist has said that this is a serious mental health issue, but that it doesn't excuse Patricia's behavior, and that Michael and I have every right to set boundaries and to protect ourselves. My therapist has also said that Michael is in denial, that he's having trouble accepting that his mother is capable of this level of manipulation, and that he's going to need time and possibly his own therapy to process what happened. My therapist has encouraged me to be patient with Michael, but also to be firm about my boundaries, and to make it clear that I will not tolerate Patricia being in our lives unless she gets serious mental health treatment and makes amends for what she did. I've been thinking about our marriage, and about whether I want to stay with Michael if he can't see how toxic his mother is. And it's a really hard decision, because I love Michael, and I know that he's a victim of his mother's manipulation just as much as I am. But I also feel like Michael needs to take responsibility for enabling his mother's behavior, for not setting boundaries with her, and for prioritizing her needs over our marriage. I've been thinking about the past 3 years, and about everything we sacrificed for Patricia's fake illness, and I'm so angry. Like, we moved across the country. Michael quit his job. We spent tens of thousands of dollars on expenses to help Patricia. We put our plans to have children on hold, and it was all based on a lie. I've been calculating how much money we spent on Patricia over the past 3 years, and it's over $80,000. Like, we paid for her groceries, we paid for her utilities, we paid for home repairs, we paid for medical expenses that she claimed weren't covered by insurance, and all of it was a lie. We could have used that money to buy a house, to start a family, to invest in our future, and instead we gave it to Patricia so she could continue her manipulation. I've talked to a lawyer about whether we can sue Patricia to get our money back, and the lawyer said that it would be difficult to prove, and that even if we won, Patricia probably doesn't have the money to pay us back. The lawyer also said that suing Patricia would be expensive and time-consuming, and that it might not be worth it. I've been thinking about Patricia, and about what kind of person does something like this. And I've realized that Patricia is deeply disturbed, that she has serious mental health issues, and that she's probably been manipulative and controlling Michael's entire life. I've been thinking about Michael's childhood, about how Patricia raised him as a single mother after his father died, and I wonder if she used guilt and manipulation to control him even back then. I've talked to Michael about this, and I've asked him if his mother was always this controlling, and Michael has admitted that yes, Patricia has always been very involved in his life, that she's always had strong opinions about his choices, and that she's always made him feel guilty when he didn't do what she wanted. But Michael said that he thought that was just how mothers were, that he thought Patricia was just being protective and loving. I've tried to help Michael see that Patricia's behavior is not normal, that healthy parents want their children to be independent and to build their own lives, and that Patricia's need to control Michael is not love, it's manipulation. But Michael is having a hard time accepting this, because it means accepting that his entire relationship with his mother has been based on manipulation and control, and that's a really painful realization. Michael has agreed to go to therapy, both individual therapy and couples therapy with me, and I'm hopeful that therapy will help him see the truth about his mother and help us figure out how to move forward. But I'm also scared that Michael won't be able to break free from his mother's influence and that our marriage won't survive this. I've been thinking about the future and about what I want my life to look like, and I know that I want to have children. I want to build a life with someone who prioritizes our relationship, and I want to be free from Patricia's manipulation. If Michael can't give me those things, then I need to be prepared to leave this marriage, as much as that breaks my heart. I've been thinking about how to rebuild our life after this betrayal, and it feels overwhelming, like we need to move back to Seattle. We need to rebuild our careers. We need to rebuild our savings. And we need to rebuild our relationship. And we need to do all of that while processing the trauma of what Patricia did to us. I've been thinking about Patricia and about whether she feels any remorse for what she did. And from what Michael has told me, Patricia is more focused on defending herself and making excuses than on apologizing or making amends. Patricia has said that she's sorry, but that she was desperate, that she didn't know what else to do, and that she hopes Michael can forgive her. But I don't think Patricia is truly sorry. I think she's sorry that she got caught. And I think if she had the chance, she would do it again. And that's why I don't want her in our lives, because I don't trust her. And I don't believe that she's capable of change. Michael has asked me what it would take for me to forgive Patricia and to allow her back in our lives. And I've told him that Patricia would need to get serious mental health treatment. She would need to pay back the money she took from us. She would need to write us a sincere apology acknowledging the harm she caused, and she would need to respect our boundaries going forward. And even then, I don't know if I could ever trust her or have a relationship with her. Michael thinks my conditions are too harsh, but I think they're reasonable. And I think if Patricia is truly sorry and truly wants to make amends, she should be willing to do those things. But I don't think Patricia will do any of those things, because I don't think she believes she did anything wrong. I think she believes she was justified in lying to us because she was afraid of losing Michael. I've been thinking about other family members and about whether they knew about Patricia's lies. And Michael has talked to some of Patricia's friends and relatives, and they all seem shocked by the revelation. Some of them have said that they had suspicions that something was off, but they didn't want to say anything, because they didn't want to accuse Patricia of lying about cancer. I've been thinking about how many people were affected by Patricia's lies. Like not just Michael and me, but also our families, our friends, people who sent Patricia cards and gifts and prayers, people who organized fundraisers to help with her medical expenses. All of those people were deceived, and I think Patricia owes all of them an apology. I've been thinking about the emotional toll this has taken on me. Like I've been stressed and anxious and angry for the past 2 weeks, and I've been having trouble sleeping and eating. I've been questioning everything, like can I trust Michael? Can I trust my own judgment? How did I not see through Patricia's lies sooner? My therapist has reminded me that Patricia is a skilled manipulator, that she's probably been doing this her whole life, and that it's not my fault that I didn't see through her lies. My therapist has also reminded me that I did eventually figure it out, that I trusted my instincts and I investigated, and that I should be proud of myself for uncovering the truth. I've been thinking about Michael, and about how he's handling this, and I can see that he's devastated, like he's lost and confused and he doesn't know who to trust or what to believe. Part of me feels sorry for him, because he's a victim of his mother's manipulation, but part of me is also angry at him, because he should have seen the red flags. He should have questioned his mother's story, and he should have prioritized our marriage over his mother's demands. I've told Michael that I need him to make a choice, that he needs to decide whether he's going to prioritize our marriage and our future, or whether he's going to continue to enable his mother's toxic behavior. Michael says that he shouldn't have to choose, that he can have a relationship with both his mother and his wife, but I've told him that's not possible. Not after what Patricia did. Not unless Patricia makes serious changes. I've been thinking about what I'll do if Michael chooses his mother over me, and I think I'll move back to Seattle. I'll rebuild my life there, and I'll start over. It will be painful and difficult, but I know that I deserve better than to spend my life being manipulated by my mother-in-law and being married to someone who can't set boundaries with his toxic parent. I've been thinking about the lessons I've learned from this experience, and there are so many. Like I've learned to trust my instincts, to not ignore red flags, to not let guilt or social pressure prevent me from asking questions and demanding answers. I've learned that some people are capable of truly disturbing levels of manipulation, and that you can't always take people at their word, even when they're claiming to be sick or dying. I've learned that it's important to set boundaries with in-laws, even when it's uncomfortable, and that it's important to prioritize your marriage over extended family. I've learned that enabling toxic behavior doesn't help anyone, and that sometimes the most loving thing you can do is to hold people accountable for their actions. I've been thinking about other people who might be in similar situations, who might have toxic in-laws or family members who are manipulative, and I want to tell them to trust their instincts, to not ignore red flags, and to not be afraid to ask questions and demand proof. I want to tell them that it's okay to set boundaries, it's okay to protect yourself, and it's okay to walk away from toxic relationships, even if those relationships are with family. I've been thinking about the future, and about whether Michael and I will be able to rebuild our marriage after this, and I honestly don't know. I love Michael, but I also need him to show me that he's willing to prioritize our marriage, that he's willing to set boundaries with his mother, and that he's willing to do the work to rebuild the trust that's been broken. Right now, we're taking things one day at a time, we're going to therapy, we're having difficult conversations, and we're trying to figure out how to move forward. I don't know what the outcome will be, but I know that I'm not going to settle for a marriage where I'm constantly being manipulated by my mother-in-law, and I know that I deserve a partner who will stand up for me and protect our relationship. Thank you for reading my story, and if you've been through something similar, if you've had a toxic mother-in-law, if you've discovered that someone was faking an illness, if you've had to set boundaries with manipulative family members, or if you've had to decide whether to stay in a marriage where your partner won't stand up to their toxic family, I would love to hear how you dealt with it and where you are now. I'm still in the middle of this situation, still trying to figure out what to do, still trying to process the betrayal and the lies, but I'm determined to protect myself and to build a life that's free from manipulation and toxicity.